virtual hearings, and real-time case tracking. For businesses, this means less time wasted traveling to courts, lower costs, and greater transparency. In addition, we are strengthening the ADR mechanisms because we know that not every commercial disagreement needs to become a long, bitter court battle. Sometimes a smarter, faster resolution is simply a better business. We are equally investing in better court infrastructure and security so that justice is not only done, but is seen to be done in environments that inspire confidence. Taken together, these reforms are designed to deliver a justice system that is faster, more accessible, and more predictable. For you in the business community, these are not nice to haves. They are essential imperatives. An efficient court reduces the cost of doing business. A predictable legal environment encourages investments, and a trusted judiciary helps sustain long-term economic growth. But let me be clear, building a truly business-friendly Ghana is not the responsibility of the judiciary alone. It is a shared duty, one that belongs to government, regulators, financial institutions, and especially to all of you in the private sector. The law can provide a framework, but it is your creativity, your discipline, your innovation, and your courage that bring that framework to life. In concluding, I would like to answer the question that I asked at the beginning. What is the Chief Justice doing here?
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Well, good morning to you, and thank you very much for choosing Pan-African Television. We are live from our studios at Abelemkpe. We are also live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. We are live on many other affiliate stations across the country. And of course, don't forget, we are live on Facebook, Pan-African Television. We are live on YouTube, Pan-African Television. Thank you very much. As always, I am SENA NOMBO. Now, this morning, we are having a couple of discussions. The first one, of course, we go back to the matter of the war that was started against Iran. Now, we have seen some ceasefire. Now, these are a few updates from Al Jazeera that have been monitoring this morning. The peace talks that are currently ongoing, the person mediating is the person who is leading Pakistan. So it's happening in Islamabad. A few of the updates this morning is said, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has landed in Pakistan for talks with Iranian officials on a deal to end the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. Now, there's also the matter of Lebanon and how Iran feels about Israel's continued bombing of Lebanon. Israel says they want peace talks, but they will not cease fire. In fact, the last time they bombed Lebanon, up to 300 people died. So there's also that angle to the war. Well, we'll be talking about that, the updates, and then maybe reflect it on Ghana, because this week, one of the biggest concerns have been, of course, the matter of fuel and fuel prices, and they need to do something about it. Despite the peace talks and the impact it has had on the prices of the commodity on the market, the government decided yesterday that there was a need to do something. There was a need to do something about it. They've tasked the finance minister, the energy minister to work together to see how, using taxes and levies, they can be able to force the prices down whilst they continue to monitor what happens in the on the situation of a conflict and also monitor how fuel responds over time. So that's one of the approaches that are being used. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll move on to this very discussion, because this week, and this is the BBC reporting this matter, says reform will deny visas over calls for slavery reparations. And the story is that Reform UK has said it will deny new visas to people from countries seeking slavery reparations from Britain if it formed the next government. Nigel Farage's party said this would apply to any country developing a formal approach, and the ban will cover all visa types, including ones for visitors and work. Britain transported an estimated 3 million African people across the Atlantic before abolishing the practice in the early 1800s. Now, maybe, luckily for us, there may be no chances of Reform UK actually taking over as the next government. But they say, if the people of the UK decide that they should form the next government, every country that has been part of the reparation agenda, that's basically the entire Africa and the Caribbean, they will deny them visas to the UK. And also Ghana has also taken a further step. We are looking at visa-free entry for all African nationals. Then we'll conclude with a discussion on the matter of the Damine mine. Now, what we know now is that there was a tender process that happened, and EMP emerged the winner of that. The minister says the Minerals Commission will take the necessary steps to get to the point where they can hand over the mine to EMP. It has generated a lot of discussion, of course, because the man at the center of EMP is Mr. Ibrahim Mahama. So I need not tell you more. My name is SENA NOMBO, and a big thank you to our panel for today, Comrade Pride Jr., who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. A lot of us has learned a lot from him. He has refused to be nestled in the either-or politics. You're either NDC, you're either MPP. If your views agree with the MPP, you become MPP. If you agree with the NDC, you become NDC. He has taught all of us to think independently, no matter which of the sides we are sitting. Always express your thought independently. So, always fantastic to listen to him in the mornings. Dr. Solomon also is Director of Communications of the United Party, UP+. He says Sulu is always cooking. It's nice to see him this morning. And it's great to have the Director General of NITA. He's also Eastern Regional Chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Dr. Mark Oliver Kevo. And sitting to my left is someone I haven't seen in a while, Idrisu Salifu Protocol, who is a member of the MPP's communication team. That's our panel for today. And we dive right into the discussion on the matter of the war and the current ongoing discussions and how that will help, especially many of us who are concerned about the impact it will have on our standard of living, but also those who are concerned about the bigger issue of our world, what it means to the world we live in, and the peace we seek. Well, I'll start from my left with Salifu Idrisu Protocol on this matter. Good morning to you. And nice to see you.
Good morning, Senator. In fact, like you said, it's been a while that I participate on this program, Alhaji&Alhaji. Let me extend courtesies to my co-panelists, especially my uncle Pratt, Pratt, and the Vintage Communications Director, who always, at every point in time, try to create scenes that are typically could be seen as unnecessary. And my brother, who is the CEO of NITA, I think that I must say that I am very happy. Of course, let me also say a very good morning to the incoming president of Ghana, come 2028, His Excellency Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia. Indeed. But why the uproar? Yes, and all other well-meaning members of the New Patriotic Party. Vasena, you have tabled a very important matter for us to discuss that had to do with the Middle East and then issues surrounding this particular so-called coming to settle a particular truce, and for that matter, a ceasefire. I think that it's a very important issue and a wake-up call to us to come to terms with the fact that individual countries, regardless of whatever powerful, whether or not you are powerful or not, there is a particular thing that actually is very now, I mean, as it were, very clear to such a point that countries must now come to appreciate the fact that regardless of whatever so-called theories that the United States of America have actually developed over the years, indeed, the true reality is that if you think that you can come together as a nation and then, as it were, try as much as you can to be able to rally your citizens, you know, across, you would be able, at least, to have a particular semblance of, you know, self-sovereignty. That, for me, is very critical in this particular equation. And I must say that the Palestinians have actually demonstrated a certain modicum of valor that has actually, sorry, did I say the Palestinians? I mean, in fact, I'm referring to the Iranians. Thank you very much, SENA. And that actually is a very important issue that I have actually, as it were, also take, you know, as a lesson from this particular unfortunate incident that the United States of America, together with their evil twin, the Israelis, led by Benjamin Netanyahu. In fact, history tells us that this particular thing is an unfortunate thing, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is the West, especially the United States of America, that sometimes doesn't actually think deeper in terms of their understanding of geopolitics, and for that matter, trying to muzzle their way, as it were, to try to do whatever they can to project themselves as though they are the superpowers. This particular war have actually humbled the United States of America. People of America, I mean, US are not bad, but at any point in time, the kind of caliber of human beings that they actually would elect to become their standard bearers, or if you like, the president, at any point in time actually will speak volumes of the kind of democracy that they think that they are actually supposed to be the bastion for which people, I mean, for which reason other countries must emulate. And it actually would, I mean, delves into what I would describe, or what we, I mean, everybody know about their, you know, foreign policy when it comes to issues of governance and all that. One thing that is very, very critical is the fact that nations have to avert their mind to this particular animal called forward military bases. That is also a very important lesson to any country that is minded to become a peaceful, a sovereign country that actually wish to embrace peace, tranquility, and all that. Now, when we all saw that bombs were throwing around, I mean, everywhere, either in United States, what is it called, UAE, where, I mean, Saudi Arabia and all that. Why? Because they allow the United States of America to go sit in their soil and start to throw, I mean, what's it called, throw bombs. These are the issues that I think that Africans must actually pay heed to and then learn serious lessons about that. I am not in, I'm only expressing my thoughts in terms of this business of a policy where countries would allow the United States of America to, as it were, create that particular forward military basis, because history and this particular practical, you know, situation has told us that that is a very dangerous move for any country to allow its soil to be used by another country for purposes of what? Engineering, war, and all that. So I think that, you know, talking about, I mean, for that actually being said, it is important for us to make a very, you know, important, if you like, historical perspective or a recollection in terms of the kind of issues that the West actually wants to actually force down the throat of the rest of the world. Now, any country that wants to assert itself to have its own or want to control their, internal, politics or democracy, you would see the United States of America wanting to project such kinds of countries as terrorists, or if you like, people who are backward, and for that matter, they, by God, natural, definition, gave United States of America the wisdom such that they think that they are the, if you like, the alpha and the omega that must dictate to each and every country across this globe that, look, this is what we want, either you accept it or we would come after you. So a particular kind of narrative has actually been created. So if you look at countries within the Arab Gulf, you would notice that, these kind of countries have their system of governance and all manner of structures in place. Now, history has told us that at any point in time that the United States of America, together with any other kind of ally, that comes to say that a particular country is molesting its citizens, and for that matter, they want to, as it were, go in there to fight and, if you like, ensure that, people within, governments within those particular countries are not in any way trying to explore the possibility of developing any so-called weapons of mass destruction. So we've seen, Iraq and the aftermath of that. Very recently, look at what happened in Libya. Libya was once upon a time under the able leadership of Muammar Gaddafi. Actually, were able to carry Libya to such a point that the rest of the world actually, as it were, envied Libya because of the success stories that they choked. But when the West actually decided to come in for purposes or for reasons best known to them, what has become Libya today? You would see that Libya has become a pale shadow of itself. The remnants of those particular issues that actually saw the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi. Today, what has happened to Libya? One thing that actually makes me very weak is that the world actually looked on where United States of America goes into another country to abduct their president. Send that president to their country, just because they think that he is or he's actually sabotaging their economic fortunes. That is the true, reflection of the matter. So what would they do? They would need to, as it were, come out to, make a particular kind of concoction, whatever, to pull it as though, as a reason, as a justifiable reason to do that. Today, as we speak, the world is silent on that. That President Maduro is languishing in one of the cells in United States of America. Nobody is saying anything. Now, the United States, or if you like, the international, the ICGC, that is the, how do they call it? The International Criminal Court Justice, or whatever it is. They have actually pronounced Benjamin Netanyahu as a walking criminal. Everybody knows that. He's somebody who is a fugitive as at now. The world is not minded to come together to arrest this particular human being so that he faces justice. Nobody cares about that. Now, for me, the kind of theatrics that the West have actually created over the years has a historical antecedent. If you look at, they have categorically decided, to create a particular narrative where, like I indicated, so they came out with certain expressions to make people look bad. One of them is, we are very much, familiar with these particular terms: suicide bombers, terrorists, extremists, fanatics, and all that. And they actually would, attribute those particular kind of dirty words to people that are actually, are supposed to be seen as freedom fighters who wants to ensure that they take into consideration, or as it were, they police their natural resources. So if you are not a darling boy, or if you would not, as it were, what's called pander to the whims and caprices of them, then you are labeled as a terrorist. So I think that we need to make that, to make that particular differentiation. Now, to answer the question, who is a typical terrorist vis-a-vis this particular issue, you will realize that, and I mean, I know that we are going to talk about reparation and all that, but I mean, this particular topic also has a particular semblance when it comes to do with the reparation. But I will just limit myself to the Arab Gulf and whatever issues that are happening. Today, United States of America, I mean, nobody would tell us today that America is actually being defeated, because for now, they know that all their options are no longer actually going to work. And for that matter, Donald Trump, you know, has actually noticed, or as it were, saw this particular thing, and for that matter, he wants to now call for a truce. Everybody knows that. Now, how do you create, first of all, you said that, okay, you are coming to, as it were, save the people of Iran, and for that matter, I mean, they came out and then murder somebody who is supposed to be more or less, you know, a particular kind of what you call a persona that is a reflection or a representation of those particular people in terms of their moral, you know, what is it called, example that they would want to see to mirror their lives. So we can akin, or we can, you know, make a particular, if you like, comparison in terms of the persona of Humayun to that of, let's say, the pontiff, because the pontiff is actually seen as a revered person who actually carries some kind of a weight in terms of what, you know, moral authority, and in fact within Christendom, everybody knows that. So America and Iran, what is it called, Israel, had the audacity to murder somebody and thinks that it must go scot-free. What about those particular, you know, students that were also murdered? I think their numbers were, hovering around 150, you know, in total. These are some of the crimes that has been perpetrated systematically at a point in time that we think that we have been exhausted by the foolishness of the United States of America and that of Israel. And I'm happy that Iran have stood their grounds and say enough is enough. So what are we what are we seeing today? Iran, by the qadr of Allah, have decided to ensure that Iran actually win this war. Why am I saying that? Today, as we speak, what has become the conditionalities or the prayer of the United States? The clarion call today by the West is now that Iran should open the Strait of Hormuz. Was that something? It was the Strait of Hormuz was already open, and everybody knows that. So I think that at the end of the day, we need to ensure that this particular crime would be paid for. And I'm very happy that yes, today is the day that they are going to sit to be able to see how best they can fashion out those particular modalities, and whether or not they would, as it were, accept certain conditionalities or not, so that I pray that this particular unnecessary war that has been mooted by Donald Trump, and I call him the Dajjal of our time. He's a Dajjal of our time, because if you are minded as somebody, you know, who actually pays heed to the scriptures, whether you are a Christian or a Muslim, our scriptures actually tells us that within the coming to the end of time, there is going to be a particular kind of a human being of a sort that would come to terrorize states. It will go around to terrorize states to the point that somebody would have to get up and say enough is enough. And that for me is what Iran is doing. Now my major source of worry is the hypocrisy and the foolishness of, if you like, please permit my French, the foolishness of these so-called Arab, monarchs. That for me is very telling. Why? And I'll tell you something. It is just as a result of the fact that they see Iran as a particular kind of a Muslim sect that they don't believe their doctrine. And for that matter, people even in Ghana are saying that, oh well, so long as they are not within our sect, whatever America and Israel is doing to them, they are right, and for that matter they must continue. What kind of thinking is this? What kind of thinking is this? So this is an albatross around the neck of this particular Arab monarchs, who, in fact, by the way, either through a very sinister approach, has been actually been, as it were, what's it called, dumped on them by the West. If you study the history within the Arab Gulf and the kind of uprising that is going on, you realize that anytime there is a turmoil and that they usurp a particular kind of if you like a system and try to put another system in place, most often than not, whatever system that are going to put in place are a poodle of the United States of America and the Western interest. That for me is a clarion call to the people within the Arab Gulf to realize that, look, if they don't actually wake up to that particular slumber and wanting to say that, okay, yes, Iran is a Shia community or is a Shia country, and for that matter, for us, we are Sunnis. So therefore, this particular kind of terrorism and then categorical slaughtering of human beings must continue. At the end of the day, it is not about religion, but it is about what Donald Trump can personally get into his pocket. Because history told us that in his first regime, what were some of the issues that were tabled to constitute his articles, the articles of impeachment, when they mooted that particular idea? It was basically what lawyers would call quid pro quo. We all know that Donald Trump is a businessman who only cares about how much money would get into his private pocket. So today, when he is actually championing this particular war, it is not for the interest of America. It is his own interest. The amount of kickbacks that he would get as a result of this particular war is what motivates him. So his renditions, his narratives actually speaks volumes of that, even to the point that he himself is confessing. Oh, for me, I don't mind to take over their oil. What sort of human being is this? So when the religious people come to me and talk about, according to our scripture, God says that there would be a particular situation in human life where a particular kind of a creature would appear, and when they appear, if you are actually in support of such a creature, it means that you are acquiescing to that particular thing, and for that matter, your final abode would be in hell. But outwardly, once you are there, and you definitely you enjoy, because you are supporting such a person. But at a point in time that you can rise up and face that particular kind of a Dajjal, that Dajjal, as at that time, you would be nuked, you would be assassinated, all manner of things will be done to you. But if you have the courage to stand and face such kind of people, according to what the scriptures are saying, both the Quran and the Bible, if we are able to have that particular courage, to confront such people, then it means that when you die, then you should be rest assured that you are going to heaven. That for me is a motivator. I don't really mind whether somebody wants to say he or she, he's a Christian or he doesn't believe in religion, he's an atheist. But at the end of the day, people have their perspective about religion. So for that matter, yes, that when people say that, okay, fine, let's not bring religion into this matter, I can understand. Because by definition, somebody by the name Friedrich Nietzsche was an atheist. He decided to say that God doesn't even exist. So he carried out his some kind of a research of his sort to say that, okay, he is going to determine whether God is there or not. And what did he do? He said he just lit a lantern in the night. So he gave God 3 days to appear. So the first night he went around his community and was saying that, God, if you think you really exist, come out. God didn't come out. For the 3rd day, he didn't come out. So he declared that God is not there. There is nothing like God. Somebody would also say that sees religion in terms of certain, dimensions, the doctrinal, the creed, the experiential, etc. So for me, yes, if we are saying let's, put religion aside, yes, let's put religion aside. But the truth of the matter is that countries must be very, 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 very careful in terms of the kind of relationship that they would, in terms of their foreign policy, where they would allow the United States of America to, as it were, implant in those particular countries that so-called, if you like, a forward military bases. This is a dangerous precedent, and any government, regardless of, and I'm referring to Ghana, who actually would attempt such nonsense, or who actually, as it were, attempted that kind of nonsense, is unfortunate. And going forward, because look, I'm young. The old, folks would definitely, be wiped away by natural, divine. What I'm trying to say is that even if you would not retire in politics, at a point in time you would die. You understand? So for me, these are the critical issues going forward, that we should know that economic, starvation and all that cannot be a reason why you must sell your sovereignty to another nation, such that they would come and pillage your resources and ensure that they repatriate whatever issues, resources that they have gotten out of your country and pay you peanut. And I was glad anytime that I listened to Uncle Kwesi Pratt, he would tell us that, look, anytime America come, to dish out to you, let's say $1, United States dollars, they are taking three United States dollars away from your economy. So can't African leaders, or for that matter, leaders in general, realize that this kind of foreign policy of the United States of America is bad? Okay. I rest my case for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And before I go to Mr. Owusu, this is an update. This story was trending yesterday, there were two things. Actually, there's one that has not been carried by any of the major news networks. But this one says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accused Spain of waging a diplomatic war against Israel and barred Madrid from participating in a coordination center to oversee the Gaza ceasefire. In a video statement posted on X Friday, Netanyahu said Israel will not remain, quote, remain silent in the face of those who attack us. Spain has defamed our heroes, the soldiers of the IDF, the soldiers of the most moral army in the world. Therefore, I have instructed today to remove Spain's representatives from the coordination center in Kiryat Gat, after Spain has chosen repeatedly to stand against Israel. Mr. Owusu.
SENA, good morning to you and good morning to protocol.
To Mr. Pratt and my brother Mark. Protocol, what did I hear you say? That inshallah the next president of the land will be who?
Oh yes, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud.
Even before the man is made the president, His Excellency. He was voted for as the flag bearer of the MPP, and ever since, if he's not in Qatar, he's in the UK. He is running away from even Ghana. How does he become president of Ghana? We got to elevate the bar. And to your cherished viewers across the length and breadth of the globe. You see, first of all, this whole conflict between Israel, Iran, and the US is not a religious conflict. We must put it in perspective. Because many a times the temptation in our country, and you see it clearly, that Christians and Muslims take some positions, and I wonder what their interest is. Israel, they are predominantly Jewish and believe in Judaism. There are more Muslims in Israel than Christians. Iranians, originally Persians, aligned to the Sunni. Now they are Shia. Americans have Christians, they have Jewish or people that practice Judaism, and they have Muslims. In fact, if it was a religious war, I'm not too sure Saudi Arabia will be receiving missiles from Iran. Because if every Muslim's dream is to go to Mecca, is that not the case? But Mecca is in Saudi Arabia. Including the Iranians. The UAE has received more missiles, drones than Israel. It's also a fact. UAE, they are Muslims. The foreigners that are Christians, but predominantly the indigenes are Muslims. So there is no semblance of religious undertones in these battles. We are just, as Africans and as Ghanaians, busy for nothing. We don't even understand the religion that we engage ourselves in. And many a times we are caught on the wrong side of history. It is also important that we understand that American foreign policy is always the same. I mean, with the exception of probably Jimmy Carter, all the 47 US presidents have gone to war. That is their foreign policy. Obama, that you and I thought he was one of us, he was a black man, we were hailing him, we came to Ghana to even come and state all the obvious, build institutions, it was only a rhetoric. He went and killed Muammar Gaddafi as an African. That is the United States of America's foreign policy. They don't have permanent friends, but they have permanent interest. Where the money is, they will go. It is normal. It is very normal in every day. It's just like a private business person. Where you see opportunities, you go. If you allow yourself, they will take advantage of it. We must also get that one straight. We must also not create the impression that it is every Iranian that is against this war, against their country. That has to be established. Because I have seen Iranians openly calling for more missiles. And I've also heard Iranians who are against the war. Let's get that. And it is very normal, because today, if there is, God forbid, an assassination attempt on the president of this country, you think it's everybody that will weep? then you are living in a fool's paradise. There will be obviously people who will be happy with that. And there will be people that will be saddened by that action. So that is the reality of our life. That is the reality of life as a journey. That whereas people will be smiling, others will be crying. They always say that football is a game that unites. How can football unite? When someone just scored a beautiful goal and another one is celebrating and another one is crying, how does it unite? So that is how I see this whole thing. Whether we like it or not, that all the countries involved, be it Israel, Iran, US, and the GCC countries, they are going through difficulties as a result of the war. And every war has its interest. So the question we must find out is, what is the interest of the US and Iran in attacking Israel and US in attacking Iran? What really are they looking at? Until you understand what they are looking out for, you would be sitting somewhere and be throwing tantrums when it will not get you anywhere. They have interest. Does the interest relate to their oil? Does it relate to security matters? I do not receive that briefings, or I don't have the benefit of those briefings, so I can only pass comment that, hey, stop. That is where we are. I came here and said the last time, when about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when the war started, that from where I sat, the Iranian security have been compromised. They have had infiltration of, or the entire security architecture is now compromised. And the reason why you could have those killings of their leadership. It's not easy. Ghana, that people think we may not have all the sophisticated accoutrement. If the security apparatus of this country do not compromise themselves, it will not be easy to just come and take out the president. No way. Because those that you are fighting, they always need coordinates. They always need the whereabouts of the president. And who is providing the whereabouts of the president? It's the people within. Whether we like it or not, ever since Israel, US started striking Iran, Iran has taken huge bullets in terms of fallout, catastrophe, in terms of fallout. The supreme leader has been taken out. Leadership of government, including Larijani, a security advisor. It's not easy to just take out the security advisor or coordinator. And these are people that are very difficult to replace. So how come from where I sit, Iranians that have shown who are supposed to be members of the Revolutionary Guard will get themselves compromised for their leadership to be at the mercy of the enemies? This is where I have a difficulty. And that is why it seems to me that the adversaries, i.e. the US and Israel, is having some sort of field day in terms of air power. They are having field day. Now, beside that, the word they say has laws, but I always say that depending on who is applying the law, there is no law governing or ruling this world. So you choose your battles carefully. What the US, and I heard my brother Protocol talk about the International Criminal Court citing Bibi Netanyahu for war crimes. Who is going to apply that? Even the judge that attempted that, now he has been cited as on either sex offense or something. He himself is now battling for his life. So you choose your battles carefully. The world knows that killing of children, killing of innocent people constitute war crimes, but depending on whether or not that crime is being committed by the US and its allies, it becomes moot. That is where we are as a country or as a world. The United Nations, if this battle was between Ghana and say Afghanistan, quickly would have moved in, whoever is in there. We were here when Babo was picked up and sent to the International Court of where was it Hague or so, because he was fighting. The Babo one and Netanyahu, what is the difference? The Babo one and Trump, what is the difference? Who is going to pick Netanyahu? Who is going to pick Trump? That is the reality of the world we live in. There are bullies, there are people who are not affected by any international law. No this and no peace. So if you look at the Iranian perspective, knowing that if they also do not make themselves relevant by becoming powerful, by possessing the sort of things that make the US and Israel so powerful, they will not be counted in the world. They also started doing what to make them powerful, and it is what the others do not support. Why we are where we are. Now, thankfully, Iran seems to have a precious resource, which is the Strait of what? Hormuz. I think but for that strait, the war will still be continuing. But the strait has served as a buffer. The world economy is being hit as a result of the close of that Hormuz, and is the reason why there seem to be negotiations that is going to take place. But a lot of propaganda. So you don't even know now where the truth lies. The same negotiation that they are going to Islamabad is taking place today. The 10-point proposals, I have seen more than 5 versions of the 10-point proposal. You don't even know which is which. Whereas from the American side, they are saying that all the initial 15-point proposal have been agreed, has been reduced to 10, and has been agreed by Iran. Iranian officials are also saying that, look, their original 10-point proposal that included end of hostilities, that included no further attacks on them, that included they having a nuclear weapon, that included everything is what is going to be discussed. So where are we? That is for me the difficulty. Now it brings to question, and I said come back that this world, there are people that seems to me that laws do not affect them, and when you know this, you know peace, and you can know how to program yourself in dealing with the rest of the world. Ever since this happened, I've been expecting the likes of China and Russia to also speak out boldly. They have to, because many a times, all these while, my understanding has always been that Iran aligns with Russia and China. They are friends. What are friends for? Oh, we are only friends when there are good times. The people are being bombarded, and you go to their aid. You have to burn up. The first motion that was adopted by the United Nations ever since the US and Israel struck Iran since the 28th of February was tabled by Bahrain. And what was the motion? That the world must, as it were, rebuke Iran for attacking Bahrain. You heard that motion, which was adopted by the UN. The question you ask yourself is that did the Iranians or the Iranians, were they the first people to strike? The answer is an emphatic no. But how come the first motion to be adopted since the war has to come from Bahrain and has to rebuke Iran? And you have countries like Russia and China not speaking out. So me sitting in Ghana, it gives me an indication that choose your battles carefully. But when it matters most, some countries may chicken out. And on this occasion, I strongly believe without any shred of doubt that China and Russia, they are chickening out. They are making the work so difficult for Iran. Now, there has been some, I stated in the earlier, in my opening remarks, that the GCC countries have taken some missiles from Iran. I also believe that that was a bad strategy adopted by Iran. See, appealing to the conscience, the emotions of the rest of the world is very important. As of yesterday, a harmless Ghanaian who has left the shores of Ghana because of poor management, poor economy, doing his locum in the UAE in Dubai, was hit by the debris of a drone. What has that Ghanaian got to do with your war? But that Ghanaian is suffering because there was a drone attack. So if I'm sitting in Ghana and I see this happening to my fellow Ghanaian who has no interest in this war, and the idea is that Iran and UAE has an issue when UAE, as a matter of fact, hosts or play host to 200 nationalities, and that is where you attack, then that's a bad strategy that I will not support. So it has to be reviewed. If it is the US you are attacking, attack the US. You know their bases. Strike the bases. Iran, strike them man to man. After all of us at a point will leave this world and die. And once we die, this business of peace, the peace will come by itself. They will fight, they will get tired. Nobody will stop me, left to me alone. Adults and countries, we are looking for land. So if you will fight and kill yourself, wouldn't you go and take the lands easily? So it it is within their right to say that today in Islamabad we are not going to agree to it. Continue fighting. They can also save themselves. Because it is not that you are killing the Iranians. American soldiers have also lost their lives. Israelis are also dying. So if others will not put their heads together and know that where they have gotten to, they have to bring it to an end, I don't give a hoot. They can continue fighting. Now, the rest of the world are crying that cost of living is what? Going up. SENA, why must you in Ghana have that issue? Why must we have that issue? You have been told that the Strait of Hormuz hosts 20% of world trade in terms of crude. So there is an 80% to be there too. Is that not the case? Do we buy our crude from that Strait of Hormuz? Ghana as a country, are we not a net exporter of crude? Nigeria, don't they have crude? It is because of the way and manner we have been managing our economy. That is why any simple thing, small thing that happens elsewhere, we cry more than the bereaved. You remember the Russia-Ukraine? When Ukrainians were not crying, we were in Ghana were crying more than them. Their inflation was better than Ghana. So I believe that, look, it has to be the point that we learn how to utilize the very resources that we have in this country so that regardless of the world situation, we would always be afloat. Now, it brings to question some truths that we are not being told, and we demand answers. SENA, there are about 2 or 3 ways of doing business when it comes to crude or international commodities. It's either you engage in a spot sale or futures, or what they call forwards. But you see, if you are a government and you allow businessmen, they will take you for granted. And that is where I believe that this administration must begin to conduct a thorough research. SENA, how can it be that they said today the world crude price is $95 and immediately it translates into our pumps? These economists, I don't get it, SENA. And we have allowed it to subsist so many years and nobody seems to be questioning that ideology, that we are buying fuel from the pumps. The stock is there. You bought it long ago at a certain rate. All of a sudden, because just like how the landlords in this country have been doing and continue to do, you put up the building several years ago. The building, you don't need any cement. The moment cement prices go up, you say, oh, I have to increase rent. You are increasing rent to go and buy cement again. And it's a serious matter that we are in this country, that the world market price of crude moves to 95. No, they say, oh, it has affected us. That $95, is that what we are using at the pumps? Again, most of these BDCs, are they telling me that the transactions that they do with these oil producing countries or oil companies are based on spot sales or are based on futures and forwards? It's just like what we have been doing, we were doing with our cocoa. So that when the world market price of cocoa was about $11,000 or $9,000, Ghana had done forwards or futures with our partners, and we had agreed at $2,600. So it didn't mean that because it was $9,000, Ghana was selling this cocoa at $9,000 because we had an existing agreement. That is what happens with these people. Yet we are made to pay whatever happens on the international market. When, as a matter of fact, even this crude that they are selling to it, that's why all of them have storage. They have storage tanks. They buy it and come and store at a certain rate. So I believe that conversation, we need to open a full-blown investigations into that matter. That will save us. Either than that, there will continue to be war. Iran and Israel, today if they cease fire, we are only postponing it to say next year. All of them will go and restock, go and have missiles. Even with these 2 weeks that they are talking about, I'm sure their stocks are running out from all sides. They need to, war is agreement. They need to go and restock and come back and come and kill themselves for their political games. And we will be sitting somewhere and we will be worrying ourselves on them. Go and kill yourself. In fact, I will pray that as adults, if they will continue to kill themselves, they should go on. We don't have the guns as Ghanaians. When they clear themselves, it will be easy for us to go and take SENA. This is all that I'll say this morning.
Someone also is Director of Communications of the United Party. One person who perhaps is not happy that this, what you are praying for, he will not be excited with this government. Director General of NITA, and I'll come to him shortly. There's a few comments, but first, this is even in the US, talking about inflation, and this is this Reuters. They say US consumer prices increased by the most in nearly 4 years in March, as the war with Iran led to a record surge in the cost of gasoline and diesel, dealing a blow to President Donald Trump, whose approval ratings have been falling because of unhappiness over his handling of the economy. Though the Consumer Price Index report from the Labor Department on Friday showed that an underlying measure of inflation that excludes the volatile food and energy components rising moderately last month, economists said that was because March's data only captured the initial effects of the oil price shock, with a second round effect expected in months ahead. So that is even in the US. Eric Okusapanu joined us on Facebook, says, to me, I blame the other superpowers serving on the UN Security Council. It singles out China and Russia. They could have sent their armada to protect Iran, but they chose to pay lip service to security protection. Solomon also was right in his submission. There's Bedu Kwame, who is joining us, says, I'm sorry to say, there's a condiment of religious fanaticism in this war. Number one, Israel capitalizing on his Judaism being the initiator of the Abrahamic religion to claim religious superiority among the three faiths. Two, the issue of Sunni and Shia is quite real, reason why most of the Gulf nations surrounded themselves with US troops. Three, both the Bible and Quran agree that God chose the Jews to be the best of all human beings. Unfortunately, Muhammad made a mistake to affirm this in the Quran, aside giving priority to Netanyahu to misbehave and lure stupidly Donald Trump in the inhumane war. That's from Bedu Kwame's analysis of why.
Which among them is fighting with the Quran or the Bible?
There's Francis Gordon, who says, long-term stability is what the world needs. This war should just end for global economy to recover. And there's Neil Ate, the UN has outlived its usefulness and has become dormant. This is also Kamal Dokurugo. Is it Kamal who is joining us? Kamal says, first of all, kudos to you and your producers for keeping the subject as a priority to some other stations are beginning to move on. Some understanding on what is happening in the Middle East is more important now than ever, and it's commendable that Pan-African TV continues to feature the Israel-US war against Iran on your talk shows. For me, a dimension that has largely been missing throughout the discussion so far is the history of Israel and US relationship, which I think is more significant to understanding the bigger picture. Historically, the US hasn't always been the closest ally to Israeli regime, although it was the first country to offer de facto recognition to the new Israeli government when the Jewish state declared independence on 14 May 1948. France, which supplied almost all of Israel's major weapons, including planes, tanks, and ships, as well as building a nuclear plant from which it developed atomic weapons, was the primary and major foreign ally for the first 2 decades after independence. Anyone can check this fact. Indeed, when Israel invaded Egypt with the British and French during the 1956 Suez Crisis, the US joined Russia at the UN to force for Israel and its allies to withdraw. And for many years, US and Israel were limited to loans to buy food through economic hardship in the years after independence. What changed on the way to heaven and why? Started at the time tensions rose ahead of what became known as the 1967 Six-Day War. France imposed an arms embargo on the region and refused to deliver 50 fighter jets Israel had paid for. After the war, France sided with Arab countries in part to improve relations after its defeat in the colonial war in Algeria. The U.S. saw this as an opportunity to develop its relationship with Israel under President Lyndon Johnson and has since never looked back. What the U.S. and Israel have in common in their foreign policy objective is that they have permanent interests and no permanent friends, something other countries must learn. Doc.
Very good morning to you and our viewers and my co-panelists. And I listened to your preamble before we started, and I want to use that as my framework for this discussion, looking at the background and then what has happened now, the implications of the ceasefire, and then the effects on the global economy and our local economy. Because we won't be discussing this if it's a remote topic that does not affect anybody here, anybody in Ghana, anybody among us. I'm not sure we'll prioritize it and discuss it. So the implications on our economy, the implications on the global economy must not be lost in this discussion. I agree with my brother Solomon that this is not a religious war, and we must de-emphasize the role of religion or the essence of religion in this war. It is not a religious war, and I'm sure Sulu has provided all the evidence to back that. I, however, disagree with him in terms of Iran's strategy. I disagree when he says that Iran is using a bad strategy by targeting its neighbors in its region. Every war has a strategy. Every war has an objective. US entered this war thinking that within 3 or 4 days, when they execute the supreme leader, the whole of Iran will rise up and then take the country, as it normally happens in some other places like Libya, like Iraq, and where Saddam Hussein was, taken out, and then that was all. Then the war ends, and then a new regime takes place, and all that has always been the structure, and that has been the expectation of the United States of America. Unfortunately, they estimated wrongly. Because if you look at Iran's structures, security structures, they have been preparing for this for a very long time. They have rehearsed all the scenarios for a very long time. And they know and they are aware that they cannot win a conventional war with US. Bullet for bullet, they know they cannot win. They know it will be a waste of time throwing missiles from Iran to New York. It will be a waste of resources for them. There's no point in doing that. So their strategy is to keep the war for a longer period and raise the cost of the war. And that is a self-preserving strategy anybody involved in an asymmetric war where your resources cannot match the resources of your opponent will go for. And that everybody must be in a state of discomfort globally to be able to bring the aggressor to book. If it is not going to be done through the United Nations, we have all sat here and said, now the United Nations is toothless. The United States and the occurrence of recent times have rendered the United Nations useless. And Iran knows that the United Nations cannot protect it. So the way to go about it is to raise the cost of the war and to raise the global discomfort so that everybody can press home the demand for the aggressor to stop what the aggressor is doing. And I think largely Iran is winning that. Forget about how many bullets they are receiving. Forget about the depletion of their military resources and so on and so forth. In terms of strategy, they are winning. And of course, there are students in United States in Iran who have been affected by missiles. So in this particular war, the US and the Israel itself, they are not respecting any art of war or any rules of war. They are not respecting it. So you must expect reciprocity. And for me, the US will come out of this war the most wounded in terms of reputation. Now, people who think that, and my brother Protocol made that point, people who think that the mere presence of US military bases on your soil guarantees security will now be thinking twice. And I must confess that in the past, when Uncle Pratt used to say that why are we entertaining US military bases here, it didn't make sense to me at that time. But now this is a practical reality of those conceptions at that time. This is a practical reality. Now Saudi Arabia, you can't be protected by the United States. UAE, you can't be protected by the United States. All those people who went into an agreement for US to put their military bases on their soils, where is the protection from the US? So that is one key thing. And I'm sure beyond this war, people will start rethinking what is the use of those military bases on our soil. If US had not attempted this strike, possibly people in their minds would have thought that they were receiving some, imaginary protection from the US. But the reality has exposed that. Again, this is also, and I read from certain scholars, Iranian scholars, that one of their major challenge was to convince the Gen Zs in Iran, the youth in Iran, for them to see United States as an adversary. They call it enemy. Because most of them have read, they have come to watch American movies, they see Americans as nice people and all that. But this unprovoked strike has rather galvanized them and enforced that teachings that they were originally skeptical about. That, okay, so this is all that we have been hearing. We have not experienced this for the past 40 years or more. But in our time, we are experiencing an American aggression on us, unprovoked aggression. And we must we must be very, very clear that it was an unprovoked aggression on Iran. Any way to bring Iran in as an aggressor or as the one that is rather creating global challenge will be a wrong conceptualization. Right from start, we must understand that Iran was doing its own thing and somebody went there to attack Iran. So in terms of the outcomes of this war, it has rather galvanized Iran. And that is the reason why, yes, you may find some few people, you know, who will make misguided statements. Oh, okay, we are happy that we are receiving bullets, more bullets, and so on and so forth. But in the generality, you are not seeing Iranians on the streets as we have witnessed before in other places. Their resolve is more consolidated and they are fighting like a sovereign country. Now, beyond that, it has also shown or demonstrated Iran's resilience, Iran's, you know, true strength. Because the strength so how come Iran is the one controlling it? There are other countries around the strait. There are other countries around the strait. But largely, it is Iran that is controlling the Strait of Hormuz now. It didn't used to be like this. It was a free passage. But it will not remain free again as a result of this unprovoked aggression. I'm hearing that now it's even being told. Now it's being told for economic benefit for Iran. And another, we don't know on the background what China and Russia are doing for Iran. We might not know. But it is true that openly we have not seen their involvement in this. But ultimately they are beneficiaries of this war. China, for example, is a beneficiary of this war. In terms of the economics, in terms of petrol economics and all that. China is a beneficiary. Again, US diplomatic position has been damaged. Because how will anybody have thought that Pakistan will be the one mediating peace between United States of America and Iran? That is how low US has come to. And it is a reason why now other countries are still cutting deals with Iran. US now is almost being left alone. And all goes into the fact that that strike was uncalculated. They did not look at all the scenarios. They did not look at all the possible outcomes that could have emerged. And it seemed to me that the decision was emotional and there was no strategy behind it. Now, Iran has successfully raised the cost of the war. Now everybody is feeling it. We are also feeling it in Ghana. And this is nothing compared to Russia-Ukraine. So our MPP friends who were saying Russia-Ukraine war, you know, we had a hit, and that were saying that they shouldn't increase taxes and all those things, and they were explaining every mismanagement with the Russia-Ukraine war. This is nowhere close to it. It's uncomparable. They shouldn't even compare. But in times of crisis, that is where we see leadership. In Ghana, we are not imposing any new taxes. No opportunistic levies are being imposed, unlike what some people did during the COVID time. Opportunistic levies. If some other government was in place now, possibly we would have been going to parliament asking for Iranian war tax or Iranian war levy so that the economy could be supported. We have not seen any panic taxes. We are not rushing to parliament to ask for any panic taxes that imposes more burden on the citizen. What His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and his government is rather doing is to understand that at this moment some hardship must be managed, and that there's a need to freeze some taxes and some levies until things normalize. And I think I commend the president and his cabinet for such a bold step. I know the details have not yet come out, how much that will materially, roll out. We are yet to see. But even symbolically, for me, it is assuring. Symbolically, even if it is just one cedi or one peswa that goes off, symbolically, it is assuring that this is how leadership acts in times of global economic crisis. You don't take advantage of your people when there's a global crisis. Rather, you sympathize with them, you sympathize with your people, and see how you can reduce the burden on them until things normalize. And I think this is where I will end with this discussion.
Thank you very much. A few comments. Let me go to our WhatsApp platform, then I'll come to Mr. Pratt. So this is from Kedebekba. I hope I got the name right. Who says, good morning. Solo seems to be a good man to Trump. Solo should not forget that America is the best tyrant ever. That is from Ked. Your name is so. There's also Janvier Anani who says, Solomon's supposed to know. Without Russia and China, Iran can't stand. Information, some precision missiles are from Russia. And the precision guide is using, the Beidou network from China. And also the resolutions at the UN Assembly. Janvier said that there's this one who says, I completely agree with protocol that the little religious facts can't be ignored. I think the same position that Beidou has made on Facebook and is attracting a discussion on our platform currently. Baba from Koko says, I'm really enjoying the submission from Chairman Kevin. The enlightenment in his submission is worth studying. The strategies by Iran that he is enumerating is one that many people are not paying attention to, but they are winning with that. This is KB in Prestia. Says, good morning, Senator. Trump is a threat to the whole world. We in Prestia have lost a brother who is a citizen in the US, but shot by ICE policemen. That's on the matters of immigration that the Trump administration has been pushing very strongly in his second term. There's this one, Angoisi Pratt. France wants to use Ghana, the Star of Africa, to destroy the Sahel countries, but our eyes are watching. That's what he writes. There's also this one, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Noted. I'll draw the attention of Fred Taburi in Techiman says, I think this 2-week ceasefire is not working at all. I tell you what, though Russia has been unsanctioned to sell oil across the globe, and Iran has also been unsanctioned, it is very dire and severe to buy and bring oil from these areas. Also, Sana, the cost to acquire oil is very severe and insecure, so we are not out of the woods yet, and we have to know that as a nation. That's coming from Fred Taburi, who sent that. There's Wahid, who says, Sana, now the whole world knows what without NATO, American cannot stand any war. After this defeat attack on Iran, Donald Trump should try North Korea to see where the power lies. Sun is centered from a lot of it in North Korea. There's this one from Kojo who says, I always learn a lot from Mr. Pratt and Solomon. But Solomon should join one of the giant parties because I want him to become a president or finance minister. They said they want him to become president or finance minister in the future. So, very interesting. Let me leave it there. Let me leave it there. Now, Mr. Pratt, where's he from?
Well, the first point I like to make is that the media reports don't tell us everything. And that to understand what is happening, it's important to go beyond the media reports and also to do some analysis, you understand. Right now, there are many people who have the impression that direct talks are going to take place between the United States of America and Iran. It is not true. Indeed, the scenario which has been said is that the two delegations will be in separate rooms. They would not meet face to face. And that the Pakistanis will be passing messages from one room to the other. So that is not a direct engagement. The two delegations would not meet, even though all of them have flown to Islamabad. They will be in separate rooms, and the Pakistanis will be passing messages from room to room. That is the scenario. But worse still, Iran has not committed to participating in the talks at all. Indeed, as of yesterday, Iran is saying that it will only begin in these talks, it will only participate in these talks, if the US first and foremost agrees to lift sanctions against Iran and to restore all Iranian properties which have been seized. This is yesterday, okay? So Iran has not agreed to the talks. There's a hurdle to the talks. But even before yesterday, Iran was insisting that the ceasefire agreement that it entered into with the United States of America ought to apply to Lebanon, and that it is one of the conditions for making progress on the talks. So for those who are thinking that talks are about to begin and that things are fine and that there's a likelihood of reaching an agreement and so on, I think that they should tarry a little. You understand? There is something else which is interesting about the so-called talks in Islamabad. The United States of America first put out a 15-point plan as a basis for the resolution of the crisis. Iran rejected the 15-point plan outright, said no, this is not the basis for negotiations. We are not going to talk to you based on your 15-point plan. Then Donald Trump made a significant statement and said that he accepted the 10-point plan of Iran as a basis for the negotiations. Donald Trump has since tried to retreat, but his first announcement was that the United States of America was accepting the 10-point plan put out by Iran as a basis for the negotiations. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? That, for me, is the most significant indicator that Iran still holds the trump card. It is clear that Iran still holds the trump card in these negotiations. Last night, Donald Trump made a very interesting statement. Last night, Donald Trump said the only issue, the key issue, the most important issue for discussion is how to ensure that Iran does not develop the capacity to make a nuclear weapon. This was only last night. Before that, Donald Trump has stated that the most important issue is the opening of the Strait of Hormuz.
Yes.
So you get a sense that the US is completely confused. It doesn't have a plan. It doesn't even know what the priorities are, has not determined what the priorities are, and so on and so on. Now, when it comes to the delegations which are being sent to Islamabad, it is interesting. The US media has been speculating. Indeed, some have claimed that it is a fact that the US Vice President J.D. Vance and Donald Trump disagree on the prosecution of this war. You understand? Now, there's also an interesting history. And that interesting history is simply that the US Vice President J.D. Vance was one of the most strident critics of Donald Trump. Indeed, at one stage, he compared Donald Trump to Hitler, which is the worst criticism that anybody can get within the context of what is happening now. J.D. Vance actually believes that there's not much difference between Hitler and Donald Trump.
J.D. Vance?
Yes. In his first term. Yeah.
Oh, you don't know that?
You're surprised.
You said the first...
During Trump's first term.
Oh, yeah.
You don't know that?
No, I thought you said yesterday. My mind was
okay. Now, the other thing which is very significant is that when Netanyahu and his security chiefs met Donald Trump and the decision was taken to attack Iran, J.D. Vance was not in the room. In fact, he was not even in the United States of America. So this decision to go to war was taken without the participation of J.D. Vance. Very, very significant. Now, this is the man who is leading the U.S. team to the negotiations. What does it say? Some U.S. media are speculating that the Trump camp within the government, there's a strong Trump camp within the government, is trying to make sure that J.D. Vance is roped into what is happening. And that is why he has been nominated to lead the negotiations. So principally, there are two people who are taking part in these negotiations on behalf of the United States of America. That is J.D. Vance and Jared Kushner, the two of them.
Witkoff is there.
Yeah, Witkoff is there. But these are the two main movers of the U.S. position. Now, if you take the Iran delegation, it is interesting. The Iran delegation is led by the Speaker of Parliament, who has been strident. He has not shaken in his position and has supported the maximalist position of Iran throughout. No shaking, you understand? He's accompanied by the foreign minister of Iran, who shares the same position. That's interesting. That alone presents an interesting scenario. Now, I've been listening to all kinds of statements which are being made and so on. And there's something very, very significant which happened in the course of the week. In the course of the week, Israel bombed a synagogue in Tehran. Israel, which claims to be protecting Jews and Jewish interests, deliberately bombed a synagogue in Tehran. This has been lost on many people. Why? It is because the Iranian army, within the Iranian army, there are many, many Jews who are fighting Israel. In fact, there are generals in the Iranian army who are Jews. And the reason why Israel bombed the synagogue in Tehran is because they were seeking to assassinate an Iranian general who is a Jew. And they believed that he was in the synagogue praying. This collapses the whole story of Jewish defense. This act of bombing the synagogue and why the synagogue was bombed collapses that whole argument completely. But you see, it is not only this argument which collapses, it's not only this fact which collapses the argument completely. The Zionist movement, which was behind the establishment of the State of Israel, was founded by atheists. You understand? It was founded by atheists. The Israeli state, its founders did not believe in God. They were atheists. Now, I'm not saying that being an atheist is bad or good. That's not the point I'm making. But the fact is that the founders of the State of Israel were mainly atheists. Now, if there were many atheists and did not believe in God, how could they have come to believe that God gave them a gift of a land? Because God doesn't exist. And if God does not exist, how does the God that does not exist give them a gift of a land? It simply doesn't make any sense at all. Now, there are some who have said that Iran is making mistakes. And that one of the mistakes that Iran has made is to attack its Gulf neighbors. I want to believe that this statement is made purely out of ignorance. Because Iran has persistently stated that it has no problem with the Gulf states. In fact, the foreign minister has constantly been assuring the Gulf state that it has no problem with them. Indeed, we should be asking ourselves why, over a 6-week period, no Gulf state has attacked Iran. Why? Why do you think that no Gulf state has attacked Iran? Because Iran is attacking U.S. military bases that are being used to attack it. Legitimate targets. Why? The warplanes that are hitting Iran, that are destroying infrastructure and so on, are coming from bases in the Gulf states. So unless you're saying that Iran should just fold its arms and see all of this.
Do you have any evidence that Saudi Arabia has fired any missile to Iran?
Not Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia as a state. No,
but they have not, you see.
No, you are distorting Uncle's thoughts.
How can I distort it? It's only intervention I wanted to seek because I have not seen any strike from Saudi Arabia, be it from a base, at least confirmed.
Okay, please allow him. I think you respond to that.
You see, Solo, you are only terribly trying to distract my attention.
No, sorry. You know what? I'm very sorry.
I'll give you an answer.
I'm very sorry. Very, very sorry.
You see, in modern warfare, it is not just guns and planes and missiles which are in use. Communication systems are also important. It's electronic. Okay? So if you have a communication system in your country which helps to communicate amongst, the instruments of violence and so on, or it becomes a legitimate target too. You understand? So that is an answer to your question. Even communication systems are. In fact, one of the reports is that a data systems base was attacked. It is legitimate target in war.
That was UAE.
Yeah, but I'm saying that it is legitimate target. You understand? So Iran is not attacking the Gulf states. Iran is attacking U.S. military bases which are being used against it. You understand? So that is clear. Now, I think again this one was said by Solo, that a Ghanaian has been hit by debris from a missile. That statement itself suggests that the Ghanaian was not a target. The Ghanaian was an accidental casualty. Okay? And in war, accidental casualties cannot be avoided. So it was an accidental casualty. Now, one thing which has emerged out of this war, one of the effects of this war is that it has shown the cracks within the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The cracks are showing. Right now, at the minimum, European countries are saying that, look, the time has come to realize that they cannot permanently rely on the US for their defense. And therefore, they ought to take their defense in their own hands. That's a major crack in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Major, major crack in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. But you see, all of these developments, including the war of aggression on Iran by Israel and the United States of America, ought to be seen within a wider geopolitical context. And if you're going to see it within a wider geopolitical context, you cannot ignore the belligerence of Donald Trump and his empire-building ambitions. Donald Trump, on the assumption of office, wanted the Panama Canal for the US. He wanted the whole of Canada for the US. He wanted Greenland, okay, and all of that and all of that. In addition, he opposed NATO's stand on the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and took the United States of America out of that conflict. Indeed, there are many who believe that for some reason he is unable to disagree with President Putin or the Russian government, and to all intents and purposes is a supporter of Russian action in Ukraine. There are many who believe that. Okay. Now, these tensions have continued to the extent that the Canadian Prime Minister has made a statement to the effect that they are prepared to trigger Article 5 of the NATO Convention. What does that mean? That in reality means a declaration of war on the US. Canada has gone to the extent of saying that, look, it is ready to go to war with the US over the attempt to annex Canada and also the attempt to take over the Greenland. So we have come to a situation where NATO countries, NATO member countries are saying that, look, if it becomes necessary to go to war against the United States, we are ready to go to war. That's a significant development. Okay. Then there are those who sit back and say that we are very disappointed with China. And we are so very disappointed with Russia because they haven't gone to Iran's aid. They are not reading the news. They are not following the developments. There was a resolution in the UN Security Council which was sponsored by one of the Gulf states, which actually insisted that any and every country had a right to use force to take over the Strait of Hormuz. It was vetoed by Russia and China. That's a very significant move. Vetoed. They had to use their veto power in order to kill, that resolution. The Russian foreign minister has been loudest in the condemnation of US and Israeli actions in Iran. Loudest. The Russian foreign minister every time. Indeed, the spokesman, President Putin's spokesman, even last night was busy condemning the United States of America and Israel and so on. Now, if you understand the world, if you understand geopolitics and so on, you would ask yourself, what would happen if Russia or China openly got involved in this war and started supplying weapons? What would happen to the world? Don't forget that Russia is a nuclear power. Don't forget that China is a nuclear power. And don't forget that China has the capacity to hit any part of the world in minutes. There is no part of the world which is secured from a possible Chinese strike when it becomes necessary and so on. The involvement of these two superpowers in any conflict could spell the end of civilization as we know it today. And it would be absolutely reckless for any of these two countries to get involved directly as is being suggested in a war, whatever that war is. So I think that we ought to be praising rather than condemning China, especially China and Russia, for exercising extreme restraint and doing everything possible to stop a senseless escalation of this war to the level of a third world war, which is likely to involve nuclear weapons, which is likely to become a thermonuclear war, leading to the destruction completely of our civilization. You understand? So that is the context within which we have to see, what is happening. Now, I think that Doc made a point that I agree with fully. And I think Solo also made that point that I fully agree with and which I intend to amplify just a little bit. You see, before this war of aggression against Iran, Iran did not control the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz is a consequence of this war. You understand what I mean? So the attack on Iran has triggered a situation where Iran has become more powerful, because by its control over the Strait of Hormuz, it now has a major card to play. And that major card, however it plays it, has consequences for every country in the world. And we need to understand that. Now, the other time, I made a presentation in which I said, look, the Strait of Hormuz is not just about the supply of oil and gas. It's indeed about the supply of everything. Everything, including pharmaceuticals. And one very ignorant, exceedingly ignorant MPP communicator had the effrontery to send me a message on my phone insulting me and calling me ignorant for including pharmaceuticals in the things that cannot move around the world is because of the chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz. He accuses me of ignorance. I mean, unbelievable, but that's not an important issue. You see, today, Asian countries like India, Pakistan, and others have become major producers of pharmaceuticals in the world. Many parts of the world, African countries, European countries, and so on, have come to depend on that region for the supply of pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceuticals are not flown, they also come by boat. And a lot of them come through the Strait of Hormuz. You understand what I'm saying? So, this chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz has affected virtually everything. Virtually everything. It would affect steel production, it would affect everything. It is even going to have an impact on the car manufacturing business around the world. You understand? Because today, a lot more people are talking about electric cars and so on. As a result of the chokehold that Iran has on the Strait of Hormuz. So even car manufacturing is going to be affected very, very seriously and so on. So virtually everything will be affected. Now, if it comes to oil, it is said that about 20% of the world's energy requirements comes through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. And sometimes you hear some people say that, oh, if it's only 20%, then it means that we have 80% to play with. It doesn't work that way. You understand? It affects prices of oil, even including the 80% which does not pass through the strait. It affects price of oil everywhere. So we cannot separate the 80% which does not pass through the Strait of Hormuz from the 20% which passes there. Because whatever happens in the Strait of Hormuz, 100% affect prices of oil products everywhere. And that ought to be realized. Now, for those of us in Ghana, we have been told that the current administration has taken moves in order to minimize the impact of the petroleum price increase, on Ghanaians and so on. And indeed, I've heard many people commend the government highly for being sensitive and for taking steps to ensure that this crisis does not affect us adversely or does not affect us in a grotesque manner and so on. What am I going to say to that? You see, SENA, we just presented a budget. A couple of months ago, we presented a budget for the year. The budget we presented for the year took account of revenues that we were going to generate throughout the year, including revenues that we were going to generate from the export of our own crude oil. And so all of that was taken into account. It also included the level of taxes on petroleum products and so on. So if government decides to reduce the taxes on petroleum products or to subsidize petroleum products in any way, what it means is that we are going to take resources from somewhere in the budget in order to provide this cushion. What we have not been told up to today is where that resource is going to come from and the impact of that on the overall national economy. Is it going to affect the Big Push project? I don't know. Is it going to expand the access, the plan to improve the access of the Ghanaian to health services? I don't know. What is it going to affect? And I think it's important that we are told so that we can make an informed judgment about the measures that the government has announced. Otherwise, you can increase petroleum prices by 5 cedis. You can reduce petroleum prices by 5 cedis. What is the impact of that? So truck drivers will not increase their fare. But it may mean that the no-bed syndrome in the hospitals may be exaggerated. We have to make a choice. Do you want to have a no-bed syndrome, or you want to have your truck fares reduced and so on? These are discussions that we need to have. And we can only have these discussions if there's full disclosure. So far, we don't have full disclosure. And that is why somebody like me, I'm unable to discuss this matter in detail, because I don't simply have the facts. Government has not made the fact, and so on. But SENA, talking about Ghana, one of the issues which has come up as a result of this war is simply the Defense Cooperation Agreement with the United States of America. This war, one of the principles it is established is that any country which makes its land available or its resources available to another country's military suffers the consequences if the other country's military uses those facilities to attack another. You become a legitimate target. Okay? So we have signed this Defense Cooperation Agreement with the United States of America. And in fact, our foreign minister has told us that under that agreement, we somehow got involved in U.S. attacks in Nigeria. I'm getting very worried. I'm getting very alarmed. You understand? In the light of current developments, it's important to ask the question whether we should continue to allow the U.S. to maintain a forward operating base in Ghana, especially using the Kotoka International Airport. It's a legitimate question. We should be asking. You understand? Now, I get so very deeply worried because only yesterday I saw videos of the U.S., the leaders of the U.S. African Command coming to Ghana at this stage. To do what? To persuade our government to keep this obnoxious agreement? Or to negotiate their exit? What did they come here to do? We need to have more information and more facts so that we can make a determination for ourselves. Now, I get worried because I remember that when this agreement was being entered into by the Akufo-Addo government, we fought it. And I remember that those who fought this agreement with us included many of the leading lights in the National Democratic Congress. Many of them. The late Omani Buama, Honorable Samuel Okujato, Ablakwa, and so on. They were all in the trenches with us, saying that the agreement was not in the best interest of Ghana and that the Akufo-Addo government should not sign the agreement. And they've been in power since for how many months now? You know, more than a year. And there's no indication that we are moving towards a repeal of that agreement. And I worry. It even gets worse. Whilst we are still thinking about what to do with the Defense Cooperation Agreement with the United States of America, we're going to sign another one. We're going to sign a Defense Cooperation Agreement with the European Union. So what is wrong with us? At a time when we are in the United Nations General Assembly, urging the world to support us, to declare the transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. At the time when the European Union is saying that they cannot agree with us and that they will fight us, and so we'll come to discuss that later, you understand? We are embracing them and dancing tango with them and signing defense cooperation agreements with them and so on. There's something is wrong. I don't understand. You understand? Now, what is worse? And SENA, what is worse? Is that as we sit here, and those of you who are sitting here are some of the most prominent people in the media in Ghana today and so on. None of us knows what is in the agreement. In the course of the week, I took my time and called parliamentarians. And I said, Jack, what is in the agreement? Every one of the 7 parliamentarians I called said they don't know what is in the agreement. Meanwhile, we are operating under a constitution which says that all foreign agreements must go to parliament for approval. All. When it comes to defense agreement, it's even in a higher category. But our constitution requires that we should go to parliament for approval. Who approved that agreement? And if that agreement has not been approved by parliament, when will that agreement be submitted to parliament for approval? These are legitimate questions. Okay? If you look at how the world is going, we should be worried. There are all kinds of wars all over the place. The intelligence we have, which I'm sure the Ghana government has, is that the European powers, European capitalist powers, and their allies, including the United States of America, including Israel, are planning subversive activities against the alliance of Sahel states, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. We know that is a fact. In fact, when the coup occurred in the three countries, France actually promised, was it 20 million euros and so on, for countries to go and take them out. And so on. So we know that. So if in the face of the knowledge that we have, we are signing these agreements, what signal are we sending to the alliance of Sahel states? And are we signaling to the alliance of the Sahel states that, hey, we want to become targets? If you are attacked by the European Union and so on, come and hit us. Doesn't make sense. Makes no sense. And I think that this matter needs to be reviewed urgently. And our government must understand that these defense agreements are so unpopular with the people of Ghana. Look, this week, the youth wing of the Socialist Movement of Ghana decided to launch a campaign for the repeal of the Defense Cooperation Agreement with the United States of America, SENA. The youth wing, it doesn't have the resources, it doesn't have anything. The first day, and I'm sure you haven't even heard that such a campaign is ongoing. The first day, the leader of the youth wing made this public on social media. They collected 500 signatures, first day. They are intending to hold a press conference sometime next week and so on to publicly announce it. I am sure that there will be a flood of signatures. I travel around a bit. Everywhere I go, Ghanaian citizens are coming to me and saying, what are you doing about this? They are calling for mass demonstrations and so on. I think that our government should look sharp. It should wake up and do something to insulate Ghana from the reckless ambitions of the Western capitalist states, in West Africa at least. And the way to deal with that is to repeal these obviously senseless, defense cooperation agreements. And so, and I mean what I'm saying. If you take the defense cooperation agreement to the United States of America, one of the provisions that I can never understand is the provision which says that when U.S. soldiers come to Ghana and they kill Ghanaians, Ghanaians cannot go to court. How can any government sign such an agreement? Another provision which says that if they come and they destroy Ghanaian property, the Ghanaians cannot go to court. How could you sign such an agreement? Another provision in the agreement which grants U.S. soldiers, Bob no rank, U.S. soldier, Bob no rank, private, Bob no rank, has more privileges in the agreement than the U.S. ambassador to Ghana. How did we sign such an agreement? The agreement states clearly that the president of Ghana, in this case, President John Dramani Mahama, when the U.S. comes to Ghana and is carrying out operations from Ghana, the location of the U.S. troops, wherever they are, if it's the airport, the president of Ghana has no right to enter. You signed this agreement. What is wrong with our leaders? What is wrong with our leaders? And we thought that it was an Akufo-Addo problem. Now it is no longer an Akufo-Addo problem. Now we expanded it. We are signing even new agreements with the European Union. You are in the UN General Assembly asking the world to support you because crimes have been committed against you by so and so and so, by European capitalist states and so on. And as the world is supporting you, they see you dancing tango with the very people they say they should support you against. Does this make sense?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I remember the last time you raised the issue of the defense agreement. There were people on Facebook who were asking me, Ghana has a defense agreement with the US. They were surprised. But that's the issue with listening and watching Alhaji&Alhaji. We don't discuss effects, we discuss the cause. We discuss the topics that everybody is trying to avoid. people see some topics are complicated. We spent weeks discussing the issue of the defense agreement. In fact, it was at the table of Alhaji&Alhaji that the issue of the demonstration started. So it's a matter that we've discussed thoroughly on this platform. It's only that somebody says I should tell you that it is no longer Kotoka International Airport. Well, this is very interesting updates from Al Jazeera on what is happening. This is Al Jazeera says Islamabad talks hinge on frozen assets and Lebanon ceasefire. So things are very fluid here in Islamabad. There's a lot at stake. There are two very different sets of goals going into these talks, and somehow they are hoping to merge them in the middle. One of the big issues is significant trust deficit between the two sides. It has not been held by the U.S. president saying that if the talks do not work out, he's rearming his ships and that this will be resolved militarily. So that's it's very fluid when you're following the updates in terms of the talks that are currently ongoing. Every one of us is of the opinion that something needs to be done. On the matter of what the government intervention will be, I understand there was a meeting yesterday between the Energy Ministry and the Finance Ministry. They have been tasked to look at and see where something can be done. They haven't yet announced which taxes they'll be taxing and what they will do in play. How do we make up for the revenue shortfall? And that's the concern that Mr. Pratt has raised. So we'll be looking forward to hearing from those two places. Just a few comments that were sent in earlier. Then we'll move on to the other issue. This Musa Abatwa, who says, I absolutely agree with Comrade Kwesi Pratt. I wonder how MPP are comparing Russia-Ukraine war and the tensions involving Israel, US, and Iran just to justify the abysmal performance while in government. But an honest assessment shows clear difference. From the Russia-Ukraine war, Ghana lost access to industrial materials, food imports, fertilizer, and agriculture support. Now, the Israel-US-Iran tensions, Ghana is suffering from higher fuel prices, rising food prices, increasing inflation, expensive imports, and a higher cost of living. And so the comparative analysis exposed that the argument is flawed. That is coming from Musa Abatwa. This is from Chairman Kofi Kwachu says, hello, and please tell Solo that the Sultan US base in Saudi hosted most of the F-35 stealth fighter jets, the AWACS surveillance planes, and the four tankers planes. In fact, the base was used in the attacks on Iran.
It's not confirmed. So there are a lot of propaganda flying around. If you ask him where the confirmation is coming from, it will be difficult.
This is Prince, who says, I'm sometimes confused when I hear people discussing the US-Israel war against Iran without talking about the root cause of the war. Please, Senna, what instigated this war? Was it not about uranium enrichment by Iran to be developed into atomic bomb? Do we want to sit down and allow Iran to attack a nation with this atomic bomb before we say what was United Nations doing? Does the street belong to Iran alone? Why is Iran talking, taking his to see some of these things we have?
Senator,
yeah.
Please forgive me. You see, whoever sent this text may mean well. But here are the facts. Fact number one, the Iran nuclear program was started with the full participation and assistance of the USA, France, Germany, and Britain. That's fact number one. Fact number two, currently, the US and Israel claim that Iran has achieved an enrichment level of 60%. Okay. Before the Iranian Revolution, under the supervision of the US, France, and so on, Iran achieved 95% enrichment. These are facts. Now, fact number three. If you take that region, Israel has nuclear weapons. So if no country in the region should have nuclear weapons, why does Israel have nuclear weapons? Now, it is worse because Iran is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Israel is not. Okay? Iran's nuclear program was subject to inspection under the auspices of the IEA, you understand, and the UN, Israel's nuclear program is not subject to inspection. So if you are to be worried about the capacity to produce nuclear weapons and so on, Iran should not be our target. Our target ought to be Israel and not Iran. In any case, these so-called peace talks are taking place where? In Pakistan. Pakistan is a nuclear power. Pakistan has a nuclear weapon. And indeed, Pakistan's policy is that every country has a right to a nuclear program. And Donald Trump has been full of praise for Pakistan, especially the Prime Minister. So please, let's cut these double standards. Let's cut the double standards. In any case, another fact. Ayatollah Khamenei, who was killed on the first day of this aggression, is the one person who has insisted that Iran should never produce a nuclear weapon, and has gone to the extent of issuing a fatwa which says that the production and possession of nuclear weapons is a crime against God. So these text messages, the person may be very genuine, whoever said may be very genuine. Unfortunately, he doesn't or she doesn't have the facts.
Let me read the last message and then I'll start the second topic with Solomon also. This is Hadim Pifam. If the so-called Arab countries and other Gulf countries who give their airspace to America to attack Iran want to avoid Iranian attacks, they should demand the US shut down its military base on their soil. It's unfair to expect Iran to absorb attacks without retaliating. The citizens of those Arab countries should speak against US presence and tell them to leave. If Iran attacks them after that, it will be a different story. As it stands now, Iran has every right to self-defense against US-backed aggression. Supporting Iran is not about religion. It is about standing with justice and speaking the truth from the heart. Well, the next discussion has to do with... okay. So in the UK has been one of the places where we've had a couple of reactions. The leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, was one of those who came out first to say that the UK should not have absented from voting on the issue of slavery as a grievous crime against humanity. They should have voted against it, not absented from voting. So abstain from voting actually. Now there's another party in the UK. They say if they form the next government, everyone from any of the countries that were part of the agenda that moved the motion in the UN General Assembly will not get visa to ever travel to the UK, and that's the Reform Party. Ghana has also, we have also made some, so on the positive side, we've decided to do visa-free entry for African citizens, a process that we'll be discussing over the next few weeks and months to see how it will work. But those two are the subject of discussion that we're having next. And I start with Solomon also on this.
So, honestly, I always agree with people who wants to take a position on matters, no matter how dangerous, no matter how shallow the decision is. I don't believe in people who stand in the middle. So, yes, Badenoch was right. That why must the UK not take a position? Because not taking a position does not make you right. So on that score, in terms of the reparation, the motion that was moved at the UN, the United Kingdom should have voted for or against. Then we know that this is our position. So to that extent, I agree with Badenoch. That was a cowardice action exhibited by the United Kingdom. So as it is, we don't even know their position. I also agree with Nigel Farage that as a political party, when we come out for us, we will not accept or we will not issue visas to all the countries that voted for. The 123 countries. So, indirectly saying that all Africans, all Caribbeans will not be allowed to go to the United Kingdom. Wouldn't you praise Farage for it? If we must by now be going to thank him and do everything possible within our power that his party will win. And make sure that he implement the policy of disallowing Africans to enter United. What is in the United Kingdom? It's a bogus country. It has always been my prayer. Honestly, anytime that I pray, because when I see the people, how many times haven't I referred you to the spectacle at the Canadian embassy, the US embassy? Anytime I see Ghanaians queuing to want to travel outside this country, I weep within me. All the bad jobs, the critical sectors of the economy of the United Kingdom are being managed by the very Africans that he, Farage, and his people do not respect. Because we don't respect ourselves back home. When we get limited resources, instead of using it to better the loss of the people of this country and the African continent, we use it anyhow. We expend it anyhow. So you can have the likes of Farage telling us this. That's my difficulty. Those that sweep in UK, on the streets of UK, are they British? Those that remove bomb, you know bomb, are they British? They practically do nothing over there. What is visa? If I wish we would start banning them from even coming to this country. Because they have been terrorizing a lot of Africans and African leaders with this visa issue. The last time it was the United States of America. We are not going to allow Ghanaians to have 6 years. We are not 5 years visa. We are not going to allow them singlet. And so what? That's your country, for Christ's sake. If I have my house, I decide who to come in, who not to come in. So you banning me from coming to your house, you have done nothing because that is your house. Whatever is pushing me to come to your house, for which reason you will have that reason to tell me not to come, I must think twice of it and then better my house, make sure I have better things in my house that will not push me to come to your house. Because we have every available resources on this continent. We are told, and it's proven to be true, that the Congo Basin alone can supply 2/3 of Africans' energy needs. 60% of the world's arable lands could be found in Africa. So what else, SENA? Somebody must convince me. Why must people not be struggling to come to Africa, but we struggling to go to them? They live with 4 different seasons. If it's not autumn, it's winter. If it's not winter, it's spring. If it's not spring, it's what, summer. When they see the sunshine, they smile. We have it in abundance here. So why must I worry myself to go there? And because of a simple matter of being disciplined back home here, managing the resources we have. Everything, when they come and we see them, we salute. They go and bring prisoners into this country, we salute them. To the extent that all the key sectors of the economy, they are controlling. Is the reason why they could be saying that. You take your mining sector, and the so-called large mining companies that you trust them, who are also in effect destroying the environment. People think these large-scale mining companies, they don't destroy the environment. Go to Obuasi, the lands are only hanging. They underground, everything, nothing is there. One day to Kevin. But they have done that damage. And where would you find those monies or resources? It's all going back to the economies. We don't mine gold in the UK like we do here, but they have more gold reserves than our Bank of Ghana, the Bank of England. You go to our oil sector, we have it. That we must enjoy from it to the extent that the Strait of Hormuz that we get discussed should ordinarily not be affecting Ghana. Why? Are we not a net exporter of crude? We have it here, for Christ's sake. That we could also turn it around, refine it, and to boost the economy. At the end of the day, it ends up in Rotterdam, it ends up in Singapore, they get refined and brought back to us, and we buy it at an expensive rate. Your telecommunication sector, a critical sector, is in the hands of the foreigners. So all the critical aspects of the economy has been taken by them. Is the reason why they see us as minnows, as underdogs, as second-class citizens to them, for which reason that Nigel Farage can open his mouth 32 teeth and tell you and I that given the opportunity, I'm praying that he will win, and he will win, and when he wins, we will force him to implement that. Because there is absolutely nothing in those countries called the UK and the Europe. They must be struggling to come here. So anytime I see or hear such news, Sena, my attitude is that it is a wake-up call for managers of the African economy. Africa has more than 1.4 billion population. Sena, we don't need any other continent to do business. The human beings in Africa is enough for us to be trading amongst ourselves. Look, this Iran-Israeli war and the US, because of that, now African countries all of a sudden are saying that they are going to do business with Dangote. Why did they have to take the war in Iran, between Iran and Israel, for you to know that when you bought your refined product from Dangote, the money will still be in Africa, and we can then join resources to further develop the continent? Nigeria goes all the way to Brazil to go and buy salt. Look at the distance from Nigeria, between Nigeria and Brazil, and the distance between Nigeria and Ghana. Why must they abandon Ghana and go to Brazil to go and buy salt? So when you are doing this, why will Farage not open his mouth and say that I'm going to deny your visa, as though we need your visa? Look, what is the population of Ghana? We are 34 million people, for Christ's sake. How many Ghanaians are living in the UK for him to think that all of us want to be there? How many of us are living there? And even those that are living in the UK, who told them that with a bit of improvement in our local circumstances, they will not join the next available flight and come back? Because now they have the benefit of what they were told. You see, that there is a position of unknown to a position of known. Anytime you visit your brothers and sisters in the diaspora, if you interview 9 of them, they have regretted relocating. But I see a lot of some young ones on TikTok deceiving the minds of those that are yet to go there. That, oh, you have to come, leave the museum and come to. Who told you that where you are is heaven? You know, you don't have any happiness. The only way you entertain yourself is go and sit on TikTok and other social media and create the impression that you are living a better life when it's not true. So for me, the lives of Farage, if you are a Ghanaian, if you are African, pray for them that they come to power, and pray that they implement this no visa thing. And let's see, between Africa or Ghana, let's even use Ghana and the United Kingdom, who will survive under the circumstances.
Thank you very much. This BB Musoko, who says, let's be honest, so far America is the only country in the world who has used a nuclear weapon on another country. Do you remember Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Trump and America should give us a break. Protocol.
Well, Sena, yes, talking about reparation. You see, if you look at the whole concept of reparation and, for that matter, colonialism, that is the reason for which the idea of reparation actually has become the center stage for us to talk about. It is important to make it very clear that as Africans, we have actually endured a systematic and categorical condemnation within the human population of Africa for a whole period of, if you like, 400 years. So it means that not a decade, not 2, not 3, but 4 what is it called? 400 years. So you can imagine. So for me, there is something that is very critical, because the West have actually trained us, or if you like, have decided at a particular point in time to choose the kind of description that they would want to use for that particular, definition of terrorism, or if you like, colonialism. Because I always see, for me, I see colonialism within the rightful definition of terrorism. And for me, what they did, according to them, because they are the owners of the English language, so they decided to define to us, or to explain to us, what terrorism is. So if you go back to look at their definition of terrorism, for example, if you look at Webster Dictionary, Oxford, Funk and Widener, and etc., they define terrorism this way: that terrorism is the act of protracted or spontaneous inflicting of or assault and intrusion within individuals and places within human populations with the purpose of instilling fear and trauma. So that was the definition that was given some 50-70 years ago. So it is very important that we establish the fact that an apple is an apple in China and can never be an orange in America. So the West, the British, the French, the Germans cannot come today to give us their definition of colonialism, or if you like, terrorism. So if you're going to take into consideration this particular kind of definition, now let's go back to that history. At the time that they systematically, within a period of 400 years, that they concocted a deal of a sort, because they decided that, because they knew that they could not actually develop their countries as at that time. So they had to come out, they came out with a particular deal between the Americans, the Europeans, the British, and all that. So they concocted that deal. Okay, fine. Why can't we go into Africa? Take these particular people, these black people, to our countries. That is, from Africa, go to Europe, to America, and back to Africa. And that actually became what they describe as the triangle trade. Okay, so within that particular period, it is estimated that about 180 million Africans was actually being taken away from Africa to Europe within the period of 400 years. So this is another statistics that is very worrying. Now, when they created this particular boat and they were transiting, human beings, they made sure that the cost of the transit of the human beings would be paid for, because on the average it was estimated that at least with the boats that they were using to carry Africans to this particular to complete the triangle trade, it was known that only 25 the people could actually be used to to transport. But what they did was that they made sure that they loaded those particular kind of boats with people in the neighborhoods of 100. So that means that the cost of that particular 25 human beings would be paid for, by that particular 100. So that means that, and at any point in time that they complete that particular triangle, for each and every transaction, about 30% of those would, or if you like 70%, not 30%, 70% of that particular physical human beings would have to die, and they would offload them, in the graveyards of the Atlantic Ocean. That actually was the order of the day. So if you are to take a very simple mathematics to say that, okay, fine, let's take 25% of that 180 million, you would get a figure of 45 million human beings who actually died through this particular process of triangle trade. So that means that these and others are some of the issues that we raise, and for that matter, I'm glad that today the world have actually come to accept the fact that what they did within those particular period was a crime against humanity, and that also was a form of terrorism. So I think that calling for reparation and all that is laudable, because, and one thing that actually is very worrying is that when we talk of, and Uncle Kosi Pratt said it's not necessarily the monetary value of in terms of monetary terms that they are going to give to us or anything, but the fact is that we have to acknowledge that certain things happen, and we, at least reparation also means that we have to redefine, or if you like, set a particular kind of understanding as to what actually transpired during this particular period. So redefining the history and putting those particular history into even in the rightful perspective is part of the reparation process. Yes, at the end of the day, these are some of the things that I said that, look, if Africans are minded, this is the time for us to realize that development actually starts, from within. And to what extent are we also able to galvanize forces to be able to champion a particular kind of, a United States of Africa, for which reason His Excellency Dr. Kwame Nkrumah actually moved. Remember, he won against this particular idea of balkanization. All these things affect the growth of Africa. So I think that reparation is important, and I'm happy that the world have finally come to acknowledge the fact that colonialism or terrorism was indeed the highest crime that has ever been committed against the people of Africa.
Thank you. Thank you. Anthony Gray says, Mr. Solomon is making real sense with this topic about Africa bilateral trade. We abandon one another because we are envious of the progress of ourselves, but prefer to be slaves to the West and see everything from them as superior and devalue our own Africanness. Yes, Myron, who is joining us, the reason why America and Israel are going for a negotiation and ceasefire is that they are short of arms. And the best way to prevent Iran from attacking is to call for support. And because they don't get that support, the next is to go for ceasefire and negotiate. That is Myron's assessment of what is happening in the case of the ongoing talks, peace talks. Doc.
Yeah, I had the benefit to read and review Uncle Pratt's book on reparations. And I think we should do more to sell it out across Africa and the diaspora, because it provides clearly a legal basis, political basis for reparation. And what has happened at the UN is just one step. We need to actively develop a framework on what the remedy should be, what this reparation should actually be. Of course, in his book he has explained how it goes beyond monetary interventions. And again, I like the way he sees it as a continuum of exploitation and not just what has historically happened. His treatment of neo-colonialism and our attitude towards it as Africans and what our position should be makes it, more elaborate than just pursuing what we have lost materially during the slave trade and possibly during colonialism. Even currently, exploitation is still going on, and that is what I think my brother Solomon emphasized. It is a core also on us, whilst pursuing the past, on our pursuit towards nationalism. Our pursuit towards nationalism in terms of our own resources. How are we nationalizing our own resources? And I'm sure we will not have time to discuss the Daman Goldfields and the EMP and all that. Because under it is also the pursuit of nationalism. And this is happening in many of the sectors. And I'm sure my government should pursue it using this as a benchmark. Over the years, we have developed a lot of human capital, a lot of resources. In the past, that used to be the excuse, that we don't have the technology, we don't have the resources and all that. Then it becomes a weak conduit for foreigners to take over our resources, whilst we earn just, some paltry pieces of it. That narration must change. If we continue to move in that direction and still shout reparation from what has happened in the past, then we are just building more, injustice that in future we may have to pursue. And we gave an example, for example, in the telecom sector. We all know that currently in Ghana, we have just technically one network operator. That is technically doing both wholesale and retail. And government should look at the possibility, technically it is possible, to separate wholesale from retailing, as is done for the Gutters and the others and all that. That is the only way Ghanaians can take part in the telecom market. You let the foreigners focus on wholesale telecom service provision. But the one who is providing me the core service direct, that is retailing. Those should be left for Ghanaians to do. And we must be committed to it. And once we are able to do that in many of those other sectors, then we are positioning ourselves for nationalizing our resources and getting the best value out of it. Else, it will be a cycle. Tomorrow, our future, leaders will be talking about reparation for injustice today because of the exploitation that is happening today. And that is well conceptualized by Mr. Pratt in his book. So as Africans, and talking about the foreign policy inequality, the fact that we are opening our borders, people are saying they will close theirs and all that. It is because we have not also developed a comprehensive framework for retrieving what we say we want. Because currently it stands as voluntary. That is how it looks like now. And normally we are told that UN resolutions and all that are not, legally binding. You cannot go and say, okay, we have passed vote, we have won, we have declared slave trade as, so and so. We need this. This is the quantum of how much we have lost as a people. So we are demanding that you pay. We haven't had that legal instrument to legally demand for it. And I think that should be the next step. If we are able to move to that next step, no leader in UK will get up and say that for them they will not respect the resolution, and that, of course, not voting effectively is like voting against. So for that, it's not even an issue. We as Africans ourselves must take our destiny into our own hands. we will not repeat the mistakes of the past and look for reparations tomorrow again. That is how I end this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Pratt?
Well, unfortunately, people like Nigel Farage and the leaders of his Reform UK and the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK are so dangerously ignorant and confused that it is frightening. You see, people like these would end up destroying the United Kingdom much faster than any nuclear weapon will. Can you imagine can you imagine the UK without African doctors and nurses? Can you just imagine the UK without African doctors and nurses? Why? They are threatening to deny visas. Is the UK heaven? The UK is not heaven. Why? Would we die if we don't go to the UK? No. But if they don't come here, they will die. That's the difference. Why? If Africa decides to cut off trade with the United Kingdom, it cannot survive. It will die. You understand? Why? Are we the only people who take visas? When we take visas to visit the UK, we take visas to go and clean their dirty cities. When we take visas to go and treat their sick, their aging, and their dying people. When we take visas, we go there to go and drive their taxis. When we take visas, we go there and operate their restaurants. When we take visas, we go there and help them to revamp their economies. When they take visas, they come here and carry our gold, our bauxite, our diamond, our manganese, and so on. When they take visas and they come here, they fatten the pockets of those who sit in the boardrooms in the colonial metropolis. That is what happens. So who suffers? Who suffers if we decide that no, we are not going to Britain, they shouldn't come here too? Who will suffer? So look, it is ignorance and confusion which is consuming them. And it's amazing that after all these years of strident exploitation, they exploited us to build their institutions and so on, they've ended up with leaders like this. Can you imagine? The UK has ended up with leaders like this. Somebody like Nigel Farage is actually dreaming about becoming Prime Minister of the UK. God save the UK. If this man should become Prime Minister of the UK would die. He's so confused. He's actually foolish to the extreme. He's foolish to the extreme. These are the leaders that Britain, which once ruled the waves, has today. Oh, poor Britain. We should pity them. Poor Britain. And he's sitting in London, throwing his little weight about and threatening that we will not get visas. And I think we are going to cry. Because somebody like him, ignorant person like him, is saying that we won't get visas, so we will go and cry. Keep your visas and let us keep our gold and let's see who will survive. Why? Today, countries like Ghana are actually subsidizing the economy of Britain. Do you know why? Why? We spend so much money training our nurses. Money that they should have spent training nurses to mind their health institutions. They don't. We spend that money to train the nurses. And when we finish, the nurses go there to serve them, That's a subsidy to the United Kingdom. Teachers. Now they are looking for teachers from Africa, especially Ghana. Who trains them? That's our subsidy to the UK economy. And he doesn't understand that. He's still taking a position of superiority. Look, we are not in 1884.
That's what he's thinking.
1884, when they met in Berlin with Otto von Bismarck, and they drew maps across Africa, their spheres of influence and so on. Those days are gone. Oh. This is the new African. We are in 2026, and we are going to struggle for every inch of our territory. We are going to struggle to build economic systems which will stop the hemorrhage. We are going to struggle to build a new Africa whose citizens will be respected everywhere, who would insist on respect. And the likes of Farage and so on, they can go to hell. Please, go to hell. We don't care. Who is he? Some upstart who fancies himself as a future British Prime Minister. Some upstart, complete upstart. And he's sitting in London threatening Africans. He is sitting in London threatening us. My goodness. How did we even get here? For somebody like him to dream that he can threaten Africans. Him too, also. Abba. Masha, we've really gone far. I mean, even just the thought that somebody like him can sit in the UK and think that, look, I can threaten Africans to abandon the cause of reparation. I will say that I will deny them visas. He has illusions. You understand? He actually thinks that Britain is heaven. Please, Britain is not heaven. If you don't know, let's tell you, no. What? And today, if you know the world, anybody who has traveled the world, if you are looking for a country to go to, a place to go to, a city to go to, where would you go? Birmingham? London? Those are villages. Huge villages. My goodness. It's so annoying. The one who annoys me even the most is that Nigerian leader of the Conservative Party. You know, and sometimes when I listen to her statements, I just wonder. So this woman, when she wakes up in the morning and she looks herself in the mirror, what does she see?
White woman.
I'm sure when she looks herself in the mirror, she sees a white woman, she doesn't see herself. What? These people are joking. They don't know. They are joking.
They don't know what time it is.
They don't know what time it is, you know, and they are joking, threatening us. What? I would have wished that some more enlightened, better educated, you know, person would have, you know, made those remarks. But look at the guy who is making the remarks. You know his closest political ally? Boris Johnson. He and Boris Johnson led the Brexit campaign. And then after that, he broke away from the Conservative Party because he was not making any headway. Everybody saw them for what they were. And he sits in London and issues a threat. His party is issuing a threat. Oh my goodness. Yes, sir? That is why this book can threaten us. This is a useless, empty threat. And we take no notice of such threats. Abba.
I didn't know you followed UK politics that closely. Well, a couple of comments to conclude the show. This is coming from, okay, I know, I see Gomoa Fete, Edem Logojo, who says, okay, he wants actually me to, Hegan Golo is celebrating his birthday today. Please kindly wish him for me. So, Hegan Golo, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. And this one says, the Indian origin politician is threatening us with visa. Trade has become their norm. As Mugabe said, take your London and I'll keep my Zimbabwe. We are not scared of them. BB sent that. Gilbert from Cape Coast. What beat my imagination is that whatever we discuss, whatever plans we have against the whites are all discussed on TVs. Every gathering at all. We invite white people in our midst. So how do we outwit them? They will always be above us until we take them out of our affairs. That's coming from you. Thank you. This is Myron again. Myron says, you see, reparation struggle is good. Very good message to the world. Won't watch, because if they accept, their people will see them as failures. But just as Angokwesi is saying, Africa must unite and strengthen our continent. Create policies that will protect our resources, then stop selling our minerals without processing them. Just one SENA, please. Mr. Owusu, China has been shipping weapons to Iran due to fragile talks between US and Iran. That's Honorable Ajiman in Dabwas. In fact, I have seen that story being published. Is it in Reuters? CNN too is reporting the same, that that's the intelligence they are picking up. Yes. Yes. There's a Gameli in Kumasi who says the notorious triangular slave trade ran obviously on 3 axes. Slaves taken from Africa to the Americas to work on the plantations owned by the European business tycoons. The raw materials produced sent to Europe for processing, the end product, sugar, coffee, cigarettes, etc., sent back to Africa. This completes the cycle. The UK position in this matter proves the double standard and hypocritical behavior of the white man. They don't see us as equal. Let's beware.
A small effort, we can buy UK. I tell you, that country, a small effort by guy will buy that country.
Well, this is as most African would have loved to see in their respective countries if there were enough job opportunities to make ends meet. But as our system has failed to create an enabling environment for young entrepreneurs to grow and expand. And again, look at the remuneration system in Africa. So it becomes obvious for the young ones who eagerly want to make it in life to see greener pastures abroad. We thank the NDC for recognizing, for putting things in place to curb these issues. Malcolm Kwame Pepra sent that. And thank you very much for those comments. We have to conclude the show for today. A big thank you to you for being a part of the show, for sending your comments, and of course, very importantly, for making time to listen and to watch us live on Pan-African Television, and of course live on our social media handles, Pan-African Television or YouTube Pan-African Television on Facebook. We are also grateful to those of you who listen to us on radio via Radio Gold 90.5 FM, and also via the many other radio stations that are currently tuning to us. A big thank you to all of you. A big thank you to Kwame Kwesi Jr., who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And every time I have the opportunity of walking into public, meeting people, you get people who speak to you about the kind of impact it's made in our politics, in the way they see our politics and the way they think. So it's always a pleasure having him on our platform every Saturday morning. A big thank you to Solomon Owusu, the rising star. I think you are the star of Ghanaian politics. We are the power. We are the opposition. We are Mr. Pratt, opposition. Who is the Director of Communications of the United Party. And of course, pleasure to see Idris Usali for Protocol this morning. He is a member of the MPP's communication team. And last, of course, but by no measure the least, Dr. Mark Oliver Kebo. He is Director General of NITA and also the NDC's regional chairman in the Eastern region. Well, a big thank you to all of you. Happy birthday to Mr. Stan Dogbe, who is Deputy Chief of Staff. He turns 50 today. He's 50 years old today.
Can you send a message to him?
What is the message?
But you know the message you have to send to staff.
Just come and announce that. Millions of people announcing birthday without any action will be resistant with the last birthday.
Tell him that at least Bobby Taji won't be bad.
Yeah. Okay. That message. I think the message is very clear. Bobby Tadi will help. And happy birthday to Bridget Bonnie, who also celebrates her birthday today. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to my colleague Henry George Martinson, whose birthday I found out this week. I've been working with that guy for so long. You never know his birthday. Happy birthday to you, Henry. Happy birthday to you. And of course, let me extend a good morning to our good friend Fojo. A very good morning to you, and a very good morning to COP Blagoji, who is Human Resource Head for the Ghana Police Service. We'll see you same time next week with another edition of Alhaji and Alhaji. Do make a date with us.